Hello everyone, Simon Mulligan here with Grade 3, List A. The first piece of List A, Grade 3, a lovely movement of a Sonatina in G by George Frederick Handel. I'm going to play it at speed, meaning this is, I feel, not the only interpretation. I think the piece works just as well slower, a little slower for those of you with smaller hands, because there's lots of octave leaps in this. So anyway, here's one version of it. So I think this work of Handel, what they want, the examiners are testing the strength of both your hands equally. You'll see that the very similar to whatever the right hand is playing, the left hand will then impersonate the right hand. So for example, the opening phrase in the right hand is mimicked by the left hand. Most of the phrases in a way. So as I say with all pieces of music with big intervals, take your time stretching up for those intervals. Those big octaves, one octave there, and that helps musically phrase the music. And I would give special attention to both hands being of equal strength here. I like the dynamics that the music suggests, not necessarily Handel's dynamics. The Associated Board put these in themselves, and I think they're very good in what they have for this. So let us look at the end of the first line. Of notes there. How are we going to phrase that? How are we going to make that more interesting so it doesn't sound like just a load of notes? I think go to where the peaks and troughs of the phrase. Think of your notes like a little mountain range where you're going to go up to the top, and then you go down, and where you go up to the top of the phrase, make that crescendo perhaps to the top. Show the line of the mountain range of the notes. And again here. So, like any mountain range, it has detail, of course, and ups and downs, but ultimately there's an arc. There's your phrase, and show that with your fingers. And remember, when we're crescendoing and showing variety of dynamic with our hands, again, it doesn't matter about the size of our hands here, we want to increase the dynamic or decrease the dynamic, get louder or softer using the whole arm, not just the finger. Because you can probably hear this, it sounds very dull and not fully using the sound of the piano in question. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a big monstrous concert grand like this. Any upright piano, the same thing. You want to use your whole arm. You want to use your whole arm. And see how my left arm here like to talk about using lots of circles. And I'm intentionally bringing the elbow away to show the end of the phrase again. Lots of this. Circles here, circle in the forearm, in the wrist, lots of little circles piled on top of one another, and ultimately a circle with the shoulder that helps with the smoothness and fluidity of the music, like suspension in a car. All the bumps you're going over on the road, it's very smooth. You've got to think of your shoulders being supporting your arm suspension. Yes. What am I talking about? I don't know. Hope it makes sense. Then we have a nice. Let us carry on with. I notice. Oh yes. I'm separating the notes slightly here. Perhaps you could say I'm impersonating the string instruments of the day, the viols, the early cello type instruments. But that's not to say you've got to play every note separately. In addition to phrasing these notes with the arm and the peaks and troughs and the mountain range I mentioned, we also want to phrase with legato playing and phrasing within the long phrase. So there's your big long phrase, and within that you can have certain notes joined together, and you and your teacher may decide to join some of these notes together. For example, there's many ways. Always slur two together, and then make the note shorter after that. So slurred, short, short, slurred, short, short. Or you may want to go where I slurred pairs of notes different places within the phrase. Whatever you choose to do, this is your chance to shine, of course, and you're playing this for the examiner, and you want to say to the examiner, you may have heard this piece a million times before, but you're going to hear my interpretation, and this is how much I enjoy the music. So show that you're noticing these details in the music and putting more than they ask for. It's always good to, within the realms of good taste, to add as much as you can, really, because there's a lot of free rein. Handel wrote his music with great detail and harmonic, obviously, precision, but he left a lot of dynamics, a lot of dynamic range to the performer to decide. So, and then let's look at the third line. We have a nice climbing phrase, end of the second line. You may want to crescendo through that. Crescendo. Notice how I'm leaning in. I'm exaggerating. I wouldn't necessarily perform this leaning in so much, but I just want to show you by leaning into the note, I'm not making my fingers harder into the key. I'm using body weight and arm weight to show the crescendo. Oops. I like that phrase because it goes across the bar line, across the measure line. So I'd make that all one phrase. And also we have our highest note in the piece. Always look at a piece of music and obvious things like, where's the highest note? Well, in this piece it's that G. It comes a few times. So it's always nice to remind the listener. Again, like the mountaintop, there's the go to the top of it and come away from it. And use that arm to iron out the bumps and to iron out the fact that we have different length fingers. So exclamatory, one last stating of the top note, as it were. So take your time here. It's very regal, I think, isn't it? It's very almost like it's been orchestrated. Big sound. Little separation before the last note, just a little bit. And take your time with this. It suggests you just give a quaver and 2 semiquavers, an 8th note and 2 16th notes. You don't want to do that because you see I can't even play. So very poised and refined, and you'll have fun. I think it's a lovely little piece.